Hi everybody, I'm back again, and this time I'm with former Liverpool and England keeper Chris Kirkland to talk about mental health in sport. And obviously I've had my own problems, and Chris openly has spoken about his problems in the past. So I'm just going to talk about that today. How are you doing, Chris?
Good, mate. Yeah, been on a good bike ride this morning. We were just speaking there before, so the weather was nice. Got out early this morning. It sets you up for the day. Exercise is a huge part with mental health, as we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, feel all right, mate, to be honest.
That's good. I first wanted to ask about this. So my brother yesterday, just for nostalgia, was watching the road to Istanbul, because we're big Liverpool fans, and he noticed that you were the keeper during the Olympiacos game. And I just wanted to ask about that, because that's a huge game in Liverpool fans' memory. How was the playing the game in the game itself, and how was the atmosphere in the team afterwards?
Oh, it was frightening. I mean, for me, I've always been a Liverpool fan. So my first game was when I was 7, standing in the Kop in them days. Signing for Liverpool, playing for Liverpool was just incredible. And yeah, that game was just, the way it went 1-0 down, probably should have done better with a goal, actually. With Valdo's free kick, probably should have saved that. But then to need to score 3 goals, and that doesn't happen hardly anywhere apart from Anfield. The Kop sucking the ball in. We've seen it again, obviously Barcelona game not so long ago, 4-0. Just special nights to play at Anfield. And even fans that are not Liverpool fans that I know of, they've been to Liverpool, been to Anfield games, and just say it's an incredible atmosphere and occasion to be a part of, and to play in it was just, I was right behind Stevie's strike when he hit it and knew it was in straight away in the 88th minute, I think it was. And then we had, I think the ref put about 5 or 6 minutes injury time up, but they seemed like about 5 hours. But then after that game, we just had this belief that we were going to go on and win it. They say it's written in the stars sometimes, and your name's on the cup. And we just, it was definitely no true. It turned out that way. And yeah, I always think of that game and sends tingles through. Being a Liverpool fan and playing in games like that, it's just, something that'll live with me forever.
Yeah, you said there about anyone that even isn't a Liverpool fan goes to Anfield and enjoys it. Well, I'm not going to bait them out, but I know a lot of Man United fans that have stood in the Kop and get shocked by how good it is, and they don't want to admit it, but they end up talking about it a bit.
A lot of my Everton mates are Everton fans as well, and they won't admit it on camera, but they've told me that you just can't beat it, particularly European nights. And we're seeing now how much Liverpool are missing the fans, and how much the fans do for Liverpool as a whole, along with all the injuries that they've suffered. The fans is one of the biggest things that they've missed. Some teams it's worked out for, not having the pressure to play in front of their own team or their fans or whatever. But for Liverpool, we've seen how much they've missed them this season. The sooner they're back in Anfield, the better.
Yeah, so next up, now we're going to get into the mental health. Last night I actually watched, so this is a new question, but I actually watched the Roman Kemp documentary. It was really like pulled at your heartstrings. And one of the things they kept on iterating is that men don't open up about their feelings half as much as they should, and that needs to change. So I'd just like to ask, like, with football dressing rooms being a footballer, was it ever spoken about mental health at all in your playing days, or because it's such a masculine environment, was it just missed out?
No, it wasn't, because you didn't realise what it was, really. Mental health's always been there, but when I suffered, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why I was feeling that way. You certainly didn't talk about it. You do now. I know for a fact in dressing rooms now they do, because it's only really been in the last 18 months, really, that mental health's come to the forefront, and not just in sport, but in general. You turn the TV on, the radio, the podcasts that you're doing now, it's spoke about every day now, which it needs to be. But yeah, certainly not when before I retired, it wasn't, because again, I didn't really know what it was. I wouldn't know what to say to someone. I wouldn't have known, you're feeling bad, but you don't know why you're feeling bad or how you're feeling bad. And I certainly didn't know what to say to anybody or want to say anything to anybody. It's only until you get to that point where you talk to someone else and they say, look, you need to talk to somebody. You're suffering with depression or mental health, you need to talk to specialists and people that have been through it. And that's only then when you start to realise there is a way out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. So you've also said in past interviews that Wigan, when you left Wigan and moved to Sheffield Wednesday was when it really, really started. How was that? You've spoke about moving, or you didn't move, but driving so far away. Was there anybody, you said you didn't really talk about it then, but if there was anybody there, do you reckon you would have spoken about it if there was any specialists or anything back in those days?
If I knew what it was, yeah, definitely. 100%. But as I said, now clubs are doing a lot more. The PFA is doing a lot more. Workplaces in general, not just in football, but workplaces in general have got a duty of care to their employees. It should be, whoever you work for, whatever profession you're in, you should know that there's places available in workplaces and also outside workplaces, because some people might want not using house sort of thing. They might want to go outside because they might be not embarrassed, but they might just not want people to know that they're feeling that way. And so it's not until you're taught that, until you get comfortable, until you, I suppose, not desperate, but until you get to that point where you need help. Because I didn't know until I spoke to somebody, and it was Neil Mellor actually. He said, "Look, the PFA have got a mental health thing set up for the PFA. Give them a call." And that's when I gave them a call, and that's when things started to feel a little bit easier. It's a big weight off your shoulders. When they say a problem shared is a problem halved. It is. It's totally true. But until you get to that point where you think you can, it's the last thing you want to do.
When you revealed all your struggles, did you get many football clubs or many players or anyone contacting you about maybe their own experiences and starting to talk as well?
Yeah, I think when I was one of the PFA, obviously I went through them and they said, "Look, would you talk about it?" And I was in a place where I wanted to help. I knew there was a lot of footballers struggling because I got calls off them. And this was 2017, I think it was, 16, 17. And, since then, I think there was 120 players contacted the PFA. Now it's up to like 1,700 that contact the PFA past and for the players. So, but it wasn't for footballers. I keep saying it wasn't for, yes, I owe a lot to football to give me a great life, and that's been my profession and still involved with it now, but it was for the general public, for people to know that it's okay to feel that way, and talking and getting help. And along with exercise is two of the biggest things you can do to help cope with mental health.
Yeah, completely agree with that as well. And when you really started to notice that you needed to do something because you were in such a low place, what were the steps you tried to make, and what do you advise people to make if they're going through the same thing?
Well, obviously talking. I know that people say, well, you was okay because you could afford to get help, and the PF help, yes, but there's so many places that are free. You just got to search them wherever you are. There's so many mental health group chats. The NHS is obviously there. The Samaritans are there 24/7. Talk to a friend, because you'll find out that friend's probably feeling, same way, might be for different reasons. But you talk to people and they'll open up. And go for a walk with someone. Exercise, as we spoke about, is key. But just having that courage and not being ashamed to ask for help. Whether that's to a family member, a friend, a work colleague, your boss. Ring the Samaritans. Contact your doctor. On these help lines, the sooner you do it, the better you'll start to feel.
Yeah, and when you were at Sheffield Wednesday, this was when it started ongoing. And I've actually looked back, and Sheffield Wednesday held you in such high regard because you're a great keeper, obviously, and you played pretty well when you were there. So, do you think that the depression or the mental health struggles affected your performance on the pitches at any point?
It did towards the end of the second season. The first season I got player of the season. And the 90 minutes was the get out for me, where I could blank it all out. As soon as the final whistle went, I was just obsessed with getting back home, because I was away from home, and that's where my anxiety, where I didn't want to be. I just couldn't wait to get home. Second season, towards the second part of the second season, it started to impact on me. You couldn't really tell, but I knew I wasn't doing as well as I should be. I wasn't making glaring mistakes, but there were shots that I should have been saving that I knew I could do my best. And then the third season, they brought Kieran Westwood in, and he was going to play, and I was quite relieved because I didn't have the pressure then of playing in games, because I knew I was going backwards and backwards and backwards, and I was going to get worse and worse and worse. So, which is a shame, saying that I was happy I wasn't playing is obviously speaks volumes and says everything you need to know about the way I was feeling at that time. So,
do you think so his mental health is the main reason that you decided to leave the sport in the end, is it?
Yes. Definitely. I turned down a new deal at Sheffield Wednesday in 2015. I was in my training kit, first day of pre-season, just ready to sign a new contract for another year, and had the pen in my hand and just said, look, can't do this. I need to get closer to home, thinking if I move back closer to home, or go home and go to a team near my house, back in near Liverpool, things would sort of reverse themselves. But I was too far gone by then. And even though I signed for Preston, which was just up the road, I was in that dark place and just couldn't get out of it.
Obviously, being a goalkeeper, sometimes mistakes unfortunately lead to goals, and if you're anywhere else on the pitch, sometimes little errors don't really make the difference like they do as a keeper. And they're under the spotlight quite a lot from the fans, from the media. What do you think, especially now, stepping away from the sport, how do you think that pressure can affect a keeper's mental health specifically, and especially with social media now? We saw it with Loris Karius. He got obviously a lot of abuse for what happened, and it was very unfortunate. How do you think that pressure affects those keepers now?
Well, not just keepers, it affects everyone. I mean, I wasn't on social media when I played. I never was on it, and I was conscious for that reason. One, because I didn't think many people would be bothered what I was putting on social media, but two, because I knew there was a few lads that were on it, particularly at Wigan. I think that's the time when it first started coming around, really getting big, 2006, 2007 time on social media. And I've seen some of the abuse they were getting. I was thinking, what would you do that for? Why do you want to go and get abused like that for? But it's not just it's a worldwide problem, isn't it? The internet and social media is a poisonous place at times. Yes, you can use it for the better good, but unfortunately, there's people that just want to abuse people and make them feel even worse. And so it certainly doesn't help. And my advice to any young lads coming up in football: get off social media, concentrate on your football. You don't need it. Don't read the papers, because no matter how good you are or how good you do, you can have 50 great games. As soon as you play one bad game or one not as good game, you'll get hammered. And it does affect you. I don't care who you are. If you read something bad about yourself, you don't want to do it, do you? You feel, well, what are they saying that about me for? That's not very nice. That's not true. What are you saying that about me for? So it does affect anyone, and anyone it doesn't affect, I've not met anybody, and I don't think there is anybody that abuse doesn't affect.
You spoke about young players there really getting off social media. You do some work with the Liverpool Academy now, and academies have come under the spotlight a lot recently with some of the mental health struggles that Newcastle, some players come out, unfortunately, the poor lad at Manchester City that took his own life. How do you think now with these players' struggles, what do you think needs to change to protect these youngsters? Is it just social media? What other outlets could you do?
Well, like I said, come on social media if you can, but I don't think a lot of them will. But clubs have now got, get specialists in to talk to the lads every couple of weeks. Let the lads know there's people at the club, outside the club, that they can ring if they ever feel down for whatever reason it is. It's not just when they're at the clubs as well, it's when they leave clubs, because a lot of, particularly academies, are there from 7, 8 years old, and they get released, at 16, 17, for 10 years. They're thinking, I'm going to be a footballer for Liverpool or for whatever club they're at, I'm going to be a professional footballer. Get released, and it's a massive shock to them. So the PFA have got to put a lot of things in place, but the clubs in general, whichever club it is, they need to help players when they're releasing them, whether that's getting another club or going into a different profession, getting them into training for a different profession or whatever. They've got a big duty of care. But yeah, regular mental health meetings, get specialists in to talk to them as groups, as individuals, try and do as much as they can for people. But again, it doesn't just come back to football, it's workplaces in general, duty of care to employees.
So being at Liverpool and being heavily involved with Liverpool, have you noticed a change in the structure towards mental health? Has anything changed in that aspect, or how has it changed during your time?
Well, Liverpool do a lot anyway. So I know for a fact Liverpool look after players that have left 7 years ago, 8 years ago, that have fallen on hard times. So they do a lot for past players as well. And I think a lot more clubs now, particularly over the last 18 months, they're starting to a lot more now. You can never do too much. The PFA are making great strides now as well. But it should have been really done before, by clubs and the PFA and workplaces in general. But we're slowly getting there, and I think it will get a lot better, because the stigma's starting to lift now. It'll never completely gone, but it's certainly now, as I said before, you talk every day, there's something on the TV, radios, promoting mental health, talking about mental health, giving advice out, which is brilliant. I think that's the way it will always be now, and it should be as well.
One thing you've done, which is honestly very inspirational, is this is how I met you, was on Twitter. You put out during lockdown, because obviously lockdown's hard for everybody, about anybody can reach out to you, and it was huge. What have you learned through that whole process of reaching out to all these people that you have been fans for you for a while? How much have you learned from that process?
That people are struggling, that people are really struggling, which is so sad to hear people's, saying that they are struggling. But it was sort of like a therapy for me to talk to people as well. It helped me, knowing that I was helping them as well, and it kept me sort of on the straight and narrow as well. You mentioned yourself there, but yeah, I spoke to a lot of people, and you know, there's been some real tough calls, stuff that I've not really been able to, I've helped, but I've not been through what they've been through. So I've sort of guided them to different services, you know, to top, you know, some real hard stuff that I've spoken to people that have suffered, which is just heartbreaking. But yeah, still doing the calls now. I said I was going to do them through January, but still speaking to a lot of people now and continue to do so because, you know, the last year, when you think about it, I mean, life's tough anyway, but this COVID has just been a living nightmare. When you think of the things we've not been able to do, you talked about it before, missing things, just the things we took for granted before, not being able to do them, it has been an horrendous time for everybody.
Yeah, lockdown's been horrendous. And how have you actually coped with the whole lockdown yourself? With everything down?
Yeah, good and bad days. Exercise, massive key to that. Doing the calls, you know, doing a lot of Zoom podcasts, talking about mental health, getting out for long walks, just trying to keep active. You know, I'm sure like everybody else, jet washing the driveway, the back garden, painting the house, just trying to keep active because you know, when we were in the real midst of lockdown, it was so easy just to sit there and do nothing and think, well, we can't do anything anyway. So, you know, no schools were open, obviously homeschooling. We were lucky, our daughter's 14 and she's clever than both of us put together. So she just sort of cracked on with her homework. I know a lot of parents have struggled with homeschooling, but just try to keep as active as possible and keep the exercise up, even on days when you do not feel like doing it. You know, if you don't, you'll just sit there and you'll feel worse for it at night and think, why didn't I go out for a walk or run or do whatever? So, yeah, the exercise has been the biggest thing, and talking and doing the podcasts and making calls to people.
For people that do a lot of, you talk about exercise is definitely key. It's been key for me. And I spoke about earlier off of the record that I struggled when the structure really, really went away and I was just left to motivate myself in sport. For sportsmen that are currently at that elite level, competing all the time, footballers during lockdown and everything, that are afraid to maybe come out and really speak about their problems, what is your advice for those people who are really, really scared to talk about it and really open up, especially like maybe the biggest people, like big players or big swimmers or anything like that?
Just be brave. Just be brave and know as soon as you do it, it'll be a massive weight off your shoulders. Even though you don't want to do it, it's the last thing you want to do, and you'll be worried about certain whatever consequences. There won't be any consequences at all. You know, people will understand, and they'll help a lot of people as well. You know, if you come out of one of these, you know, we've seen a lot of people come out now, they're in the public eye, and it does help. It makes people feel as though, if that person can struggle, so, you know, even though that person who's in the public eye is still a human being, and yes, they might be in the spotlight, but they're still human. We're all humans. But it does help so many other people, and that's what I certainly found, and that spurs you on even more then. And, you know, like I said before, problem shared is problem halved, and it's not until you share and get help that you really can then try and cope and coping mechanisms to you know, for the bad days, which unfortunately we're all going to have now and again.
So you now have started Walking's Brilliant, and you've also got the Yapper app and everything. With Walking's Brilliant, you've got the aim to walk the Kilimanjaro is in 2022. Have I got it right? You're raising money to do that.
We've had to put it back here. The Yapper app, Jack knows, obviously mental health. He got in touch with us a few years ago when I first come out. Said, "Look, I've got a great idea for a mental health app. It's going to be free for everybody." So he's done amazing things with that. There's a new update coming out soon, which is going to be huge. Which really looking forward to seeing how far that progresses. So he's done amazing with that, Jack has. I'm delighted to be on board. But yeah, the walking's brilliant. Big Martin Crosby started it off really. I mean, I've always walked with dogs, but he found himself out of a job for the first time last January in 33 years and started walking and started the walking drill, rang me and said, "Look, I'm going to start this up for mental health charities," because it was pre-COVID. So it was literally for mental health charities, and a few more come on board. John Parkin, Dean Windass, Gaz Marshall. You know, there's quite a few now, and people we don't know have joined the group and put videos on about the benefits of exercising and talking. So yeah, there's videos on Walking's Grill on Twitter every day, which is helping a lot of people as well, which is great.
Yeah, it's actually, I remember speaking to you last time. It's helped me a bit, although it took me a while to realize what to do. I did start going out for walks with my mum, and she was out pacing me, so that made me realize I really needed to start doing those types of things.
Yeah, I think it's the videos as well, like obviously the exercise, but listen to people. You know, there's people on there that have suffered trauma, addictions, mental health, you know, suicide in the family. everything you can imagine, and listen to their videos is very inspiring to me and also to a lot of other people as well. So it's not just about the so-called people in the spotlight. There's a lot of people on there that, you know, are helping us as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant what you're doing. And I've also got another app to talk to you about quickly. I'm not sponsored or anything, that's why. But I've been talking to a company called Kooth recently, and they're a bit different to Yapper, but they're anonymously, you can go and talk to them. This is for people out there that are watching. You can anonymously go and talk to Kooth and just reveal all your problems, and they'll help you. They'll be online to chat. You could eventually call them if you feel confident enough. But it's about getting through those stages, really. And I think that's going to be helpful to a lot of people. And Chris, it's been brilliant listening to you, because it's
should get them to link up with Yapper. Should get them to message Jack Knowles, and maybe they could do something together.
Yeah, I know the CEO, so maybe I'll speak to him about that. But like I was saying, it's very inspirational hearing a top keeper, and you don't really talk about it that much, but too much, because you're a very humble man. But obviously you're at the top level, and to hear somebody of your stature talk about it and be so open, it helps a lot of people. Like I said, it helped me a lot as well, and it gives you a bit of confidence. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Nah, it's fine, mate. It's great to see you doing well as well, and you turn the time into something positive. And what you're doing with these podcasts will help a lot of people as well. So yeah, I'm glad that we spoke, and yeah, make sure we keep in touch as well. And hopefully, when we can meet other people, we can get out for a walk together or do some exercise.